Step out of the car, the moment that decides it. You're parked or you've just been pulled over on an ordinary road on an ordinary evening. The officer walks up to your window, leans down, looks past you into the car, and then says 5 words that change everything. Step out of the car. And in that moment, most people do one of two things, and both of them are a mistake. Some people argue, "Why? What have I done?" And their voice climbs, and now they look like trouble. And most people just open the door and get out, because a person in a uniform told them to. And it never once occurs to them to ask the single question that decides whether the next 10 minutes end with them driving home or standing on the pavement watching their car get torn apart. Because here is what almost nobody in this country understands. The one rule. You must stop. Police can require you to stop your car. That part isn't a choice. But whether they can make you get out of it, that depends entirely on something the officer is hoping you won't ask about. And by the end of this video, you know exactly when you have to step out, when you don't, and the one calm sentence to say, the second those words, nothing to hide, is the trap leave their mouth. Stay with me, because I'll give you that exact sentence, word for word, in just a minute. I'm Oliver Bennett. For 15 years, I defended people in police stations and courtrooms across England and Wales. And I watched over and over how the whole outcome of a stop was decided in the first 30 seconds by people who had no idea what their rights actually were. So let me make sure that's never you. Now, before I give you the words, I have to clear away the belief that gets more people searched than anything else. Because you might be thinking it right now. You're thinking, I've got nothing to hide, so it doesn't matter. I'll just get out, be polite, let them look, and I'll be on my way. And I understand completely why that feels like the sensible, decent thing to do. But I'm telling you, as someone who has sat across from people in a cell who thought exactly that, cooperating and surrendering your rights are not the same thing. You can be completely genuinely innocent, get out of that car, consent to a search, and still lose your evening. Still have your car pulled apart on the roadside, still end up answering questions you were never obliged to answer. All because you treated a request as an order. Being helpful is good, but knowing the difference between I'm asking you and I'm ordering you under a specific power, that is the whole game. So let's learn it. And before I give you the 4 powers and the words, let me show you the 3 mistakes because I promised you the exact sentence. But the sentence only works if you're not already busy making one of these. I watch people make all 3 from the wrong side of an interview room table for 15 years. The 3 mistakes that get people searched. First mistake is a silent one, and is the most common. You open the door and get out the instant you're told to, without a word. It feels polite, but in law, saying nothing and going along with it can be treated as you agreeing to everything that follows, including a search you never had to allow. Your compliance becomes your consent. That's mistake number 1, and is the expensive one. The second mistake is the opposite, and is the one that turns a 5-minute stop into a nightmare. You argue, "Why? Hey, what have I done? You can't do this." Your voice goes up, your hands start moving, and now, whatever the truth is, you look like a risk. And an officer who feels like they're dealing with a risk starts reaching for powers they might not otherwise have touched. You've handed them the very justification you are trying to avoid. And the third mistake is the quiet talker. The person who answers every single friendly question. Where have you been tonight? Whose car is this? Where are you off to? And bit by bit, trying to be helpful, they say something that becomes the reasonable grounds that gets the car searched. They talk themselves into suspicion. So, not silent and passive, not loud and fighting, and not chatting your way into trouble. There's a fourth way, and it's the cool, precise one I'm about to give you. Here is the foundation it's built on. Here is the stop the car not equal to get out of the car foundation. And it's the one bit of law I need you to hold on to. Under Section 163 of the Road Traffic Act, if you are driving, a police officer can require you to stop, and you must. If you don't stop, that on its own is a criminal offense. So when those blue lights come on, you pull over. You turn the engine off. You wind the window down enough to talk, and you keep your hands where they can be seen. You always comply with the stop itself. That is not the part you ever argue about. But, and this is the hinge that everything turns on, stopping. The car and getting out of the car are two completely different things in law. There is no general power in England and Wales that lets an officer make you step out of your vehicle just because they'd like a better look at you or because you're making them curious. To make you get out, they need a specific reason. And the 4 reasons they can make you step out, actual legal power. And there are really only 4 of them. So let me give you all 4 plainly, because once you know the 4 reasons they can make you step out, you'll instantly recognize when they've got one, and more importantly, when they haven't. Reason 1, you're under arrest or about to be. If an officer is lawfully arresting you, they can require you out of the car, and they have to tell you what you're being arrested for. That's a real power. It's reason 2, a Section 1 PACE search needs reasonable grounds clear. Reason 2, and this is the big one, the one that's really happening most of the time those words get used. They intend to search the vehicle. Under Section 1 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, an officer can search you and your car, but only if they have reasonable grounds to suspect they'll find something specific. Drugs, a weapon, stolen goods. And reasonable grounds is the key phrase in your whole life on the roadside. It is not a feeling. It is not, you seemed nervous. It's not, it's a nice car for around here. It has to be a real objective fact they can point to. And crucially, before they search, they must tell you their grounds, who they are, and what they're looking for. If they're searching under Section 1, they have to explain it. That's the law, not a courtesy. Now, I have to be honest with you and give you the one exception because I never want you to say the wrong thing out of half knowledge. There is a single situation where the police can make you. The exception, a Section 60 can stop and search you and your car without reasonable grounds. And it's called the Section 60. Under Section 60 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, a senior officer can authorize a specific area for a limited time where there's been serious violence or they fear it. Think a town center after a large fight or an area with a knife crime flare-up. Inside that zone, for that window, officers can search people and vehicles for weapons without needing individual grounds for you specifically. So if an officer tells you this is a Section 60, that's a real power and refusing the search itself becomes an offense. But here's your protection. Even then, you can still ask them to confirm it is a Section 60 and you can still ask for their name, their station and a copy of the record. A genuine Section 60, they'll happily confirm. It is the one lawful answer to what are your grounds that isn't actually about grounds at all. So know it exists, so it can never be used to bluff you. Reason 3, they suspect you've been drinking or taking drugs. If an officer reasonably suspects you're impaired, they can require a roadside breath test or a field impairment test. And yes, that can mean stepping out. But again, notice the pattern. It takes a reasonable suspicion. It's not thin air. And reason 4, they're seizing the vehicle. If you've got no insurance, no valid license, no MOT, or the car is not roadworthy, or it's being driven antisocially, there are powers to take the vehicle. And that can mean you getting out of it. Now look at those 4 again, because there's a thread running straight through every one of them. Arrest, search on reasonable grounds, suspicion of impairment, seizure. Every single lawful reason to make you step out comes attached to a specific power and a specific reason. Which means if none of those 4 is true, if you've simply been stopped, your documents are in order, you're sober, there's nothing they can point to, then step out of the car isn't an order backed by law. It's a request dressed up as one. And you get to treat it like the request it is. So say this. The exact sentence, line by line, here is the sentence. This is the payoff I promised you. The exact words to say calmly. The moment an officer tells you to step out, you say, Officer, I'm happy to cooperate. Am I being detained or arrested? Are you searching the vehicle? And if so, what are your grounds? I don't consent to any voluntary search. Let me break down why every piece of that works, because it's doing 4 jobs at once, and it's doing them without ever making you look like you've got something to hide. I'm happy to cooperate. That opens it. And it matters because it tells the officer and any body cam that's rolling that you are calm and reasonable, not obstructive. You are not fighting. Tone is everything here. Am I being detained or arrested? This is you asking them to name the power. If the honest answer is no to both, then this is a voluntary encounter. And a voluntary encounter is one you have far more control over. You think, are you searching the vehicle? And what are your grounds? This is the one that does the heavy lifting, because now you've politely put the officer on the spot to state a lawful reason out loud on the record. If they've genuinely got grounds, they'll tell you and then you comply. You step out because now it's a lawful order, and refusing a lawful order can itself be an offense. But if they don't have grounds, you have just made that very difficult for them to hide. And the last piece, I don't consent to any voluntary search. This is the most important sentence most people never say. Because if you say nothing and you just let them look, the law can treat that as you consenting. And once you've consented, you've handed away the requirement for them to have any grounds at all. You've given permission. So you say it clearly and once, I do not consent. If they then search anyway, that's their decision to justify later, but you never gave it away for free. Now, let me be very clear about something, because I never want this to get you into trouble. Refusing consent, yes, versus refuse a lawful order, no, to consent to a search, is your right. But refusing to obey a lawful order is not. If the officer does have one of those 4 powers, they are arresting you. They've told you their grounds for a search, they suspect you're impaired, then you step out. You comply, you do not physically resist, you do not lock the door, you do not pull away, ever. You can disagree with every second of it and still comply, and then challenge it afterwards through a complaint or a solicitor from a position of strength. The place you win an unlawful stop is never on the roadside. It's afterwards on the record you can be created. Comply with the power, refuse only the consent. Keep your voice level. Remember, they may well be recording, and so can you. Now, you might be asking the obvious question. What if I ask for their grounds? They haven't really got any, and they still tell me to get out. Can they physically drag you out? Physically drag me out of the car? And it's a fair question, so let me answer it honestly. The police do have a power to use reasonable force, but, and this is the whole point, only to do something they're lawfully allowed to do in the first place. Force to carry out a lawful arrest or a lawful search, yes. Forced to do something they've no power to do, that's not reasonable force. That's an assault they'll have to answer for later. So this is exactly why you never make the decision physical. You never grab the wheel. You never hold the door shut. You never let it become a wrestling match. Because the moment it's physical, you've lost, even if you were right. You keep it in words. You make them state the power. And if they act without one, you let them. And you win it afterwards with a complaint with the solicitor. On the recording, you stayed calm enough to, if you're the passenger, create. And let me answer the question I get more than almost any other on this. What if you're not the driver at all? What if you're the passenger? Because the rules shift and in your favor. That duty to give your name and produce documents under the Road Traffic Act, that lands on the driver because they are the one in control of the vehicle. As a passenger, you're not driving, so that specific duty doesn't apply to you. Which means, unless the police have a separate power aimed at you personally, they reasonably suspect you of an offense, they are searching you on grounds, it's a section 60, or they are arresting you, a passenger generally doesn't have to give their details or get out at all. So if you're sitting in the passenger seat and an officer leans in and says, "And your name?" the same can question does its work. Am I suspected of something, officer? What's the power? You'd be amazed how often the honest answer is that there isn't one. They were simply hoping the passenger didn't know the difference. And here's something that surprises people about what a car search. A car search is not your phone passcode actually covers. When an officer searches your vehicle under Section 1, the search has to be tied to the thing they told you they are looking for. If they said they are looking for a weapon, they can look where a weapon could be. What that power does not do is hand them a free pass to go through everything. And it certainly doesn't force you to unlock your phone and let them read your messages. Your phone is a separate battle with separate rules. And simply being searched at the roadside does not mean you have to hand over your passcode. So don't let a search of the car quietly become a search of your entire private life. The scope is set by the grounds. Hold them to it. And if they do tell you they are searching the car, you're entitled to more than most people ever ask for. Before or during that search, an officer should give you what you're entitled to ask, their name and station. Tell you the legal power they're using and the grounds for it. tell you what they're looking for, and you can ask for a copy of the search record. If you remember nothing else about a search, remember that you're allowed to ask, what's your name and station, and what's the power and the grounds? A lawful officer answers that without blinking. It's the ones who get evasive that tell you everything you need to know. And on their questions, the chatty ones, the where have you been tonight, whose car is this, where are you heading, remember, you generally don't have to answer those. If you're driving, you must give your name, address, and produce your license, insurance, and OT if required. Those are the documents, but the story of your evening, you can simply politely say you'd rather not answer questions. No comment isn't rude, and it isn't an admission of anything. It's you exercising a right that exists precisely for these moments. Now, everything I've just given you, the 4 powers, the exact words, when you must comply and when you don't have to, this is one scenario. One, there are a dozen others. What to say when they ask to search your phone, what happens when they turn up at your front door, what your rights are when you're not driving but just walking down the street. And I've put all of it, every common encounter, into one short, plain English guide, the Know Your Rights Handbook. It's written exactly like I talk, no jargon, so that the right words are already in your head before you ever need them, instead of coming to you an hour too late. I'm not going to give you a hard sell on it. If this has been useful to you, the link is in the description and it's there. The whole stop played out whenever you want it. Let me walk you through exactly how this sounds when it goes right, because hearing it as one smooth moment is worth more than any list. Picture it. Blue lights. You pull over. Engine off, window down, hands on the wheel where they can be seen. The officer comes to the window. Step out of the car for me. You don't move and you don't tense up. You say warmly, of course, officer, I'm happy to cooperate. Can I just ask, am I being detained or arrested? And they say, no, nothing like that, I just want to look. So you say, still perfectly friendly, no problem, are you searching the vehicle? Because if you are, I'd just like to know your grounds. And I should say, I don't consent to any voluntary search. And watch what that does. One of 2 things happens. Either the officer has a genuine reason, and they'll say it, yes, I can smell cannabis. Or you match a description, and now you know it's lawful. So you step out, calm as anything, and you comply because that's the smart move. Or far more often than you'd think, there's a pause, because they didn't have a reason. They were fishing, and you've just, without a single raised word, made that impossible to dress up. And the stop quietly winds down, and you drive home. That is what knowing this looks like in real life. Not a fight, not a confrontation, just a calm person who knew exactly which door was open and which one wasn't. You were never rude, you were never obstructive, you were simply unbluffable. So let's bring it together because I want this to stay with you. When an officer says, remember this, step out of the car, your body doesn't move and your mouth stays calm. You remember they can make me stop, but getting out needs a reason. Arrest, a search with real grounds, suspicion I'm impaired, or seizing the car. And you say your sentence. I'm happy to cooperate. Am I being detained or arrested? Are you searching the vehicle? And what are your grounds? I don't consent to any voluntary search. If they've got a power, you comply. If they haven't, you've just quietly protected yourself and your evening without ever raising your voice. The people who walk away from these stops aren't the ones who argue the loudest. And they're not the ones who meekly hand over every right they have. They're the ones who know calmly exactly where the officer's power ends and theirs begins. Now you're one of them. If this helps you, do 2 things for me. Send it to one person you share and subscribe Care About Who Drives. Because the middle of a stop is the worst possible moment to be learning this. And subscribe because every week I give you the exact words for one more of these moments in plain English so you're never caught not knowing your own rights again. I'm Oliver Bennett, know your rights, and I'll see you in the next.